Hello, thanks for coming to my talk. Today we're talking about stature lengthening dysgenics, how sending the wrong signals makes us all ugly dwarves, and how our short-sighted selfishness means we all have to do it anyway. Here's my YouTube channel. You can copy and re-upload this anywhere. I don't care. I'm not making money. A couple terms. I'll use the term CLL, but I'm really just talking about stature lengthening for increasing your height for cosmetics. Another term, eugenic, means something that's good for for the gene pool, for the genetics of the group. Then there's another word, dysgenic, means something bad for the group, bad for the genetics of a group, bad for the bloodline. An example of this would be eugenic would be if you reproduced with someone who's like smart, beautiful, intelligent, tall, then your children are most likely to also be like that. Another example, eugenic would be something like you are having lots of healthy children who themselves are also going to have lots of healthy children. Um, uh, Dysgenic is something bad that means like you're reproducing for someone who's like ugly, diseased, genetically deficient, have genetic problems, Down syndrome, other diseases that are just other genetic disorders that cause problems. That would be dysgenic. What's next? Genetic predisposition. DNA is inclined. So a genetic predisposition is like it's your DNA pushing or nudging you towards a condition or behavior. It's not guaranteed. Here's some examples. Big examples: male attraction to larger breasts. Why? Because then they can feed children, and then the good for the bloodline. Male attraction to younger women because they're more fertile, have more eggs, can greater chance of reproduction. So that's that. Those are examples. Fear of heights, so that the children don't jump off of ledges when their parents aren't looking. A couple things. Environmental factors. These change your physical height. Uh, so pH, physical height, opposed to genetic age or your genetic height. Environmental factors. There's negative and positive. Positive ones would be HGH and CLL. These would be ways to grow without being limited by your genetics, so to speak. Or these would be positive ones that make you taller. Negative ones, these are ones that have been around for a long time. Things like malnutrition, legs blown off in a war. These don't affect your genetics, but they are environmental factors. Genetic age is like basically what you're born with, what your DNA says how tall you should be given assuming you have good nutrition. Physical height is the end result. Physical height equals genetic height plus environmental factors. Height is strongly genetic. One day, there's a couple scientists at Harvard that think they know, that think they've identified the genes that are coding for height. There's many, many, many of them. Possibly one day we'll be able to genetically test for it, but as of now, we can't. Why is it good? Physical height equals, which means resources and therefore women. Survival of the fittest. In caveman days, better be the big caveman than small caveman. From women's perspective, they were absolutely required to go for big caveman. Why? Because big caveman meant you'd kill the lion, and big caveman could therefore get food, and therefore you could reproduce, as opposed to going with the small caveman, you're more likely to die and more likely not to reproduce. So for women, it was biologically required to go for the big caveman. At first, it was just chance. Maybe they were just trial and error, just figure out, oh, maybe they didn't know at first. Eventually, there's probably a middle ground where there was cultural, where they saw all the other women that survived all went for bigger, taller men, so therefore they want to go with them. Eventually, it's genetic. Eventually, women got a genetic predisposition to go for taller men. How? Because mutations, it's evolution. You get approximately most of your genes from most of your genes come from your parents, but about 1%, maybe probably much less than 1%, comes from a mutation or just randomness. Roll the dice. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. Some mutations that help you, some mutations don't help you. Some of them don't do anything. If it's really bad, you can't even get out of the womb. You'll just die. Like, some mutations are good and they like make you, stronger, better eyesight, faster, something like that. If they help you, then you should be able to reproduce more and survive more. Those are good mutations. Those are eugenic. Conversely, if a mutation is bad, it might hurt you, and therefore, right. So if a mutation's good, it'll randomly spawn in you, and then it'll be passed on to your children because it's genetic. Genetic predispositions can also occur artificially through the Siberian fox experiments, which is just an example of domestication. Another example is how wolves were turned dogs. Basically, we only allow the ones that do what we want right? The wolves were very aggressive. Or well, let's look at the foxes. Foxes were very aggressive at first. They didn't like humans. We bred the ones that were more nice, and then from those we only bred the nicer ones, and then from those we only bred the nicer ones. Eventually, we get foxes that you can play with and are very dog-like and are very friendly, which is abnormal. So we can control this somewhat through selective breeding. Women were, again, they were going for physical height. In the background, they were also going for genetic height. Um, again, physical height equals genetic height plus environmental factors. They were selecting for physical height. You can't, so they would go for the tall man, the tall caveman. The tall caveman was guaranteed to have tall genetics because there were no positive environmental factors. See the previous slides. So this was eugenic for most of human history because humans have been around for about 300,000 years. Americas are still growing today, like an inch every 40 years. This is even of 2000, boys and girls of 2002 are still about an inch taller than boys and girls from 1960. Is that due to nutrition? Probably. I'm guessing not. I think that's genetic. Um, how? Because women are more selective than men, right? Men will mate with just about everything under the sun and then move on to the next thing that they can. Whereas women are generally more selective because they're the ones that have more invested into this if they become pregnant, right? Women have to carry the child, so therefore they need to be picky a bit. They have to be more picky and choosy with their mate than the man does. So the women are the ones that are being selective on more selective. Then came positive environmental factors, right? HGH, human growth hormone. You can only use that for a certain amount of time until your growth plate's closed, which I think is around like 18 or 20 or something. So that's not very. There's limited availability. The time frame for that is little. Cosmetic lengthening is available pretty much most of your life, and that's the one we're talking about here. It's becoming more popular as well. Google Trends says it's doubled. Google Trends says it's doubled in popularity on Google search and or YouTube and whatnot in the last 5 years. Likewise for limb lengthening. Micro benefits. Women want you, men want to be you, and your pool of potential mates increases, and your ease of getting with them also increases. Why? How do we know this? Because people that use shoe lifts and people who get cosmetic limb lengthening report it, as well as women report that's what they want. The importance of long-term thinking is critical, right? Small benefits today, small sacrifices today mean big gains tomorrow. Compounding interest, exercise today for health and beauty throughout your life. You save money today so that you can retire tomorrow, et cetera, et cetera. Micro downsides of CLL. Um, when uh, when you do cosmetic limb lengthening, the pH signal, the physical height signal, unreliable. In other words, if you see someone who's physically tall, you don't know if they're genetically tall or not, right? They might have gotten limb lengthening. So that signal of physical height is no longer a perfect indicator of genetic height. So that's concerning. Um, yes, you could do in the future, you might be able to do genetic testing, but we're not there yet. Basically, it's false representation. You're watering down the pool of tall suitors. You're watering down what it means to be tall. And we know women care about genetic height because we know women care about genetic height too. We know this because they're turned off or dissuaded. They dislike, they reject people who get cosmetic limb lengthening, right? If they only cared about physical height, they would encourage everyone to get it, but they don't. It seems to me that they hate cosmetic limb lengthening, therefore they care about genetic height. So that tells us that they must care about their offspring. Macro downsides for society of CLL. It increases the average physical height of the entire group, making everyone else relatively shorter. I can't stress this enough. You're raising the bar for everyone and inauthentically. So you're distorting what the true genetic height is. This is an example of tragedy of the commons. Um, yes. Here's an example. So say here's a diagram. Median height is 3.5 in this group. Here's this column is your physical height. This column is your genetic height. So you're basically one of these circles. The inside number is your genetic height from because it's inside you, and the outside number is your physical height, your appearance from outside. So say you're this two, you have a two genetic height and two physical height, and then you get cosmetic limb lengthening, and then you come up here. Now you have a 5 physical height, but you're still a 2 on the inside. What's the result? changed the median for the entire group. The entire group's median has changed. This distorts what it means to be normal, right? Before, if you were within zero point 0.5 of the median, you were normal. Now, now it includes people who were originally tall, and you're pushing someone, right? This three here used to be normal, and now it's in the short category because it's not within zero point 0.5 of the median. Likewise for the talls, right? This guy that was a 5, genetic height 5 and physical height 5, he gets pushed down to normal because now he's within zero point 0.5 of the median. So that changes things, that distorts things. And this is only for one cosmetic limb lengthener. Tragedy of the commons is a problem where what's in your best interest is different from what's in the group's best interest. And so therefore you do what's best for you. And when other people see that you're not doing what's best for the group, then they themselves will be more likely to copy you. An example of this is health insurance. You're super healthy and you decide not to get health insurance, right? Because why would you need it? Then other people, it raises the cost for other people, and then other people will also leave, and then the next healthiest person will leave. A similar thing if you're at the grocery store and you see someone stealing, um, right? Why? They're just stealing a bunch of stuff, putting in a trash bag and walking out, and there looks like there's no punishment. Why should you be paying when they're getting away with it for free? Right? You're more inclined to copy them. So it's a toxic problem. Here's an example, prisoner's dilemma. I'd encourage you to pause this video and look at this. The best thing for the group, ignore the letters here, but just look at the numbers. The numbers are how many decades in jail. Um, what's best for the group? The example here is the police arrest you and another person. You and the other person committed a crime. What's in your best? Well, I guess it doesn't even matter, but you have two options. You can, let's say you're red here, you can either stay silent or you can snitch. If you stay silent, if both people stay silent, it's the best situation for the group. But if both people snitch, it's the worst thing for the group. However, because uh, snitching is always in your favor as an individual, though. So, right, say your friend is staying silent, it is best for you to snitch, right? If your friend is staying silent, this number here is less than this one. So if you snitch on your friend, you walk free here, as opposed to staying silent, then you're in jail for a year. So that's the difference. The difference is the key takeaway from this. The difference is that what's best for you is always to snitch, right? Look at if your friend testifies, it's still better for you to snitch. If your friends stay silent, it's still better for you to snitch. But what's best for the group cooperating and staying silent. That's the difference. So this is an example of tragedy of the commons. I think it's the same with CLL. Problem is that social cohesion across all the Western world seems to be decreasing. People don't feel connected with their communities. They're not volunteer for the area. They're not volunteering overall. They're perceiving crime to be high, political polarization, religious diversification and conflict, et cetera, et cetera. So people are no longer really doing what's best for the greater good. That causes kind of again a death spiral. People need CLL, they get CLL, increases the physical height average for the whole group. Everyone else gets relatively shorter. Everyone else feels relatively shorter. The next generation is, or sorry, more people mate unknowingly with genetically short people, and then the next generation literally is genetically shorter, and then the cycle continues. I'd encourage you to pause the video and look at this in detail. The end result is, or basically, it's an arm race of non-genetic height. Oops, sorry. It's an arm race of non-genetic height. So ask the question, what happens if every single person got ZLL or CLL? Um, no one would really be any taller or shorter relatively, right? If everyone got the surgery, then there'd be a lot of complications, there'd be a lot of stuff lost, but no one would be any taller. Essentially, uh, height only matters. Height is relative, is what I'm trying to say. So if you're taller, then it's your relative to like the average, relative to the rest of the group. So if you're taller than other people, then you're tall. The number doesn't really matter. It's just you're higher than them, so to speak. And that's so cosmetic limb lengthening is only beneficial if others don't get it. Women also send false signals, a lot of false signals. Big one is makeup and all the different kinds, other surgeries, boob job, nose job, Brazilian butt lift, facelift, blah, 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 Instagram filters. So they also do this too. And hence, the real purpose of this talk is not really cosmetic limb lengthening, it's more cosmetics in general. You're basically just lying to everyone else. And the problem is that everyone's just kind of lying to each other. And then the children are not what you would expect because everyone's kind of deceiving everyone else. Um, Solutions. Um, if we wanted to prevent this, we already have laws against like things like dumping toxic waste in the river because it if it hurts the group indirectly. We also have laws against false advertising because people would prefer going for a magic pill to cure their cancer rather than doing chemotherapy, which is difficult but would actually help. We also ban steroids in the Olympics, right? Because it distorts like the results, right? In the Olympics is also a game where your relative score matters, right? To win in the Olympics, you need to be better than other people to get the gold medal, and therefore steroids are banned in the Olympics, and also like UFC and stuff like that. Similar for amphetamines in like colleges and college entrance exams, but you can now get that with a prescription, so that's just more problems. If we wanted to we would have to theoretically ban it on the entire world. That's not really practical. We can't even keep drugs out of prisons. China did cosmetic limb lengthening, but people that are rich enough, you just go overseas and get it, and that's what most people are doing anyway. So it's not really practical to ban it. In short, basically, in the sexual marketplace, everyone's basically lying to each other. It would be ideal if we could all just like, accept who we are and kumbaya and just stop lying to each other. That would, but we're not there. Instead, right now, we're just kind of all false advertising to each other, and then just like in Tragedy of the Commons and the Prisoner's Dilemma, we're getting the worst outcome where everyone just lies, and we're all going to eventually start getting shorter. Um, Ideally this would be the case of like some kind of we would need some kind of like social cohesion, some kind of religion, to like tell people, hey, just don't lie to people, accept who you are, your body is a gift, don't destroy it for cosmetics essentially. But religion is generally dying in the West, so and that's not really happening, and more people are doing these things, just as I saw in the Google Trends, so it's we're not really going in the ideal direction. So yep. Rebuttals. There's a couple rebuttals. They're going to say women weren't selecting for height. It was taller men killing shorter men. That would just mean that nature was selecting for height, or men were selecting for height, or possibly the woman's fathers were selecting for height. Either way, it doesn't really change the outcome of the result. Um, Rebuttal two: women were men that are genetically short should still be able to get women and reproduce. Sure, that's fine. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying that the result is that the more short people that reproduce, the more short kids you have. And if that is that okay? Do you want the next generation to be shorter? That's up to you. Uh, Another question is another rebuttal is I'm short because of my environment, not because of my genetics. Basically saying I'm genetically tall on the inside, so it's okay to get CLL. I would put you to the test to prove that. We have the test for that, and most situations that's not going to be true. Another thing is I'm only going from very short to short or short to normal. You're still changing the average physical height of the group and distorting what reality really is. You're distorting what the genetic height really is, and you're making everyone else relatively shorter. Same for I'm only married, but you're still changing the perception of reality, and you're still changing what normal is to people. Same thing for this. Um, you can't discuss the bloodline or eugenics because you become a genocider and a bad person. Other people are already talking about it. Other people already do eugenics to an extent. Look at, for example, in Iceland and the Netherlands, where the majority of babies that are tested positive for Down syndrome in the womb are aborted. So, I mean, that's slightly different, but still, you want you want the next generation to be good. Caring about mine is playing God. Uh, I reject that. This is within our scope, and we should be able to do what's best for our children, regardless. Final one: CLL is justified giving the depopulation bomb and tanking fertility rates, possibly. Image credits. Thank you, and enjoy. Make sure to stretch for your cosmetic limb lengthening, since no one cares about each other. So good luck. Hope you grow your full 8 centimeters.